came to St. John's in 1988. St. John's was celebrating 100 years of ministry. However, the congregation had really turned inward and was in kind of a survival mode, and the neighborhood had deteriorated. It was a dark and dangerous neighborhood, and surrounded by a lot of homeless neighbors and people who were in desperate human need. I think the transition came when we were able to see our opportunity for ministry all around us and open up the doors of St. John's and go from a membership idea of ministry to a discipleship idea of mission and ministry.
I think one of the important pieces of ministry here is that we have the opportunity to remind people again and again of their baptismal call to ministry. And ministry is not just for the church professionals, it's not for the pastor, it's not for the Christian education director, it's for all of us because God gives us that way. And so I hope that whatever we do in ministry is about bringing people back to the baptismal covenant, back to the fact that God gives us, back to the incredible reality that God also empowers us and then sends us out. And I think if we're all looking in that direction and if we're all living that vision out, everything else is going to fall into place.
I think one of the best things about St. John's is Tyson House. It's our campus ministry, and it's this marvelous opportunity for folks to engage with young adults as they're bridging the distance between youth and adulthood. And it's a time when students are coming into their gifts and their training at a higher level than they've ever been before. They're still figuring out what they're going to do with that. And what better time is there to engage with people as a community of faith?
I don't think it's a mistake that I'm sitting on the chancel stairs, because so often this is a place that I spend time with the little ones at St. John's. And truly one of my favorite parts of worship is being here and watching the kids run down the aisle. It makes my heart happy. It's raucous, and I'm always worried somebody's going to fall, but it's also so beautiful and so joyful. So I really appreciate that. And I think that translates to all of God's kids. We can't all run to the children's sermon, but my hope would be that all of us are finding that kind of joy in ministry.
Raising the Roof has become a way of life here at St. John, so it's more than a theme for a capital campaign. It really is an approach to life and ministry here in this neighborhood, here in this community. We want to expand our vision for ministry, and I think Raising the Roof says to the community, we're going to be here for another 127 years. Our roof is 102 years old and needs to be replaced because it's leaking. There is damage to the interior of our sanctuary and the plaster work that needs to be repaired, and painting needs to occur. We also need to update our facilities, particularly our classrooms and our kitchen. There's a lot of work to be done there. There's technology that we could take advantage of, and additional lighting that could enhance what happens in our sanctuary and throughout our facility. So there's a lot of ways that our ministry would be enhanced by these capital improvements. But beyond that, the endowment needs to be firmly established for future life and ministry of this congregation. The endowment will provide for ministries that we otherwise couldn't provide for with the general fund budget. It'll also provide for ongoing capital improvements and capital needs that a facility this age will have indefinitely. So, and then in addition to that, we'll be reducing our debt with this campaign, which will free up even more money for mission and ministry. So all of those things combined, along with the 10% of proceeds going for benevolence. You know, the ELCA has a campaign this year. The Southeastern Synod has a campaign this year. And we want to contribute to those ministries as well as to regional and local ministries that we can provide for. Regional, like the Southern Seminary, has needs that we could respond to. Lutheran has needs that we could respond to. And locally, we have just all kinds of opportunities to expand our ministry.
The primary goals of this 3-year capital campaign, Raising the Roof, are mission support, roof replacement and capital improvements, St. John's endowment, and debt reduction. What is the financial goal? $1 million. What are the priorities for campaign proceeds? 40% capital improvements. The first dollars received will be used for repairs and improvements. Our church sanctuary is 102 years old and has never had a new roof, only patchwork. There are leaks in the sanctuary and plaster damage. We need to be responsible stewards of our facility. 25% endowment. The purpose of the St. John's Mission Outreach is twofold. One, to provide perpetual development of the life and ministry of St. John's and fund the perpetual care of our facility as needed. And two, promote faithful Christian stewardship of all resources, present as well as accumulated, that reflect love for family, neighbors, and God's work through this church. 25% debt reduction. As of August of this year, St. John's has a total liability of over $650,000. This includes property loan, line of credit, and roof loan for the educational building. Reducing this indebtedness and the interest payments that they require are among the capital campaign goals. 10% benevolence. Through this portion of the campaign, St. John's will be providing support to wider expressions of ministry, incorporating the biblical concept of tithing in this capital campaign. The Raising the Roof campaign emphasis begins today and concludes on Christ the King Sunday, November 22nd, when we will receive your offering and worship of campaign commitment cards. At St. John's Lutheran, we continue to be joined together in Christ, and we are raising the roof. Thanks be to God.